Alright, this is another video pertaining to the Mac script for importing Streetfighter 4X Tekken model. And this is just meant to be a more in-depth technical discussion about um, the importing and stuff like that. So now, I introduced the Mac script in the last video, but basically we just hit the import button once and a second time import the color palette. Of course, we can, I don't know if I showed this, but you can actually import any color palette. What it'll do is it'll do a lookup between the materials. So yeah, of course I can select this mesh and I can select, or I can load up in another palette. Okay, so we have three palettes, but I'm not sure what the third one is. So the other palette, of course, on our thing was red pants and yellow pants. So we can actually bring in the second palette, which will bring her pants yellow. Since we load in that second palette, we just hit auto, and it'll load that up. So let me just explain, number one, how that all kind of works. What's happening is, we go to the material editor for a second here. Okay, I'll just click on our model. Okay, so we have a bunch of submaterials, and you can see that our submaterials are given two names. The one in this column is the object name. So I import this as a simple single mesh, just for simplicity, to make it all simple. It imports as one mesh, but actually in the model file you have sub meshes. So this is all one mesh. This 1, 2 are actually one mesh, but when I combine them, they're actually all just one object, of course. So if I wanted to separate them, then I left the ability to do that by just tagging in what object it belonged to before it was combined. So we have that description here, and then we also have the material name. Now I serialized the material names just to keep them unique. I didn't want them to overlap, but you can see that there's some overlapping in the material names. Okay, so you got face, and then face appears again, and then etc., etc. So the serial numbers are there just for clarity. Now, how this all works is you have your mesh, and it has a material information, such as this. But then when you bring in that palette swap, that material file there, you have a list of these material names. Now, they don't exactly meet up with either the object name or the material name. They're kind of loose names. Okay, so when you hit auto, what it's actually essentially doing is it's doing a searching algorithm to search to see if this is the same, or this is the same, or is it somewhat the same, and then it connects it. So you can see here we have one object called material or body underscore environment or something, and then that we only have body in here. Okay, and there's some other stuff in here that has case sensitive, different case of letters like uppercase and lowercase, and it's just nothing looks like it was meant to be. So there's some loose calculation there to try and get it transferred over, but if that calculation fails, of course, it won't update the material. So what I've done to indicate that the material's been revised is I put an asterisk before each of the object names. So you can see here that every object pretty much assigned, and the only one that did not assign is actually this one called amber. So this one is just left as it was before. So you can see it's got that what is that? That multicolored map. All right. So I can just bring that into view. All right. So it still looks like that. Okay. So there's been no manipulation done to that material at all, because it's not discussed or brought up in this list. Okay. So this is a good thing and a bad thing. So this means you can essentially load up any material file from any other character to get the color palettes for your textures and stuff, right? There's the other bad thing, because if the auto assignment doesn't work, then you'll have to manually assign it. So if you want to manually assign something to amber, just turn on manual assign, and then you have to take this index number, which is 17, and type it in as the ID that you want to replace. And then it's just simple. You select your mesh, and then you select one of these in the list. So let's say we want to replace it with the bunga. Okay, and so now it doesn't really tell you that it replaced it. I have to fix that, but yeah, it's been replaced now. It's been updated to reflect those material settings. So you can see now it's been change from a blue map to whatever that palette was assigned for. Okay, so that's how you would do it manually, and just adjust your materials. So another thing I didn't show you guys was, oh yeah, it did update. Okay, never mind. All right, another thing you can do is you can actually manually set up your materials. So let's go to the pants, which is called, I think it's like the 7th index. Okay, this pants is a good demonstration just because it's a striped material, so you can clearly see what's going on. If we go into the diffuse map channel, we have a couple modifiers, actually a lot of modifiers, but we get to this composite modifier, we're actually stacking the different layers. So if we just disable these momentarily, we're brought back to that base map that with the multicolors, with the purple and the blue and the green. And really what this is just it's just telling which region of the texture to shade in a particular color that you choose. So if we want to change the stripes, we can click on one of the masking maps. Okay, just filter into here, and then there's going to be a color 1, and we can change that. Now you can make it any color you want, like say green. All right, and what's that essentially doing is, if we go back again to our final result, we turn that on now. It's going to color that green. Okay, so it's just coloring that region green. All right, because on our base map, it's replacing anything that was purple. Okay, that's essentially how it works. So we actually have 1, 2, 3 things we can color. All right, so that's how this all works. You have 3 masking maps, 3 colors. So if you want to change the color, you click on here, clear, and then you have a color, and you change it. Right, so you can very easily customize your materials. Now, you may 3ds Max. You may be thinking, okay, you kind of did this in the wrong way. I know of a better way. I'm sure that's probably true. My problem was I had to get this to be compatible with the old version of 3ds Max as well as the new version of 3ds Max. So I had to use some older modifiers and kind of stack them. So I had to do a lot of stacking to get the results that I wanted, instead of just using a more streamlined modifier in the new version of 3ds Max. So unfortunately, yes, we're kind of stuck to a kind of a rigid, cumbersome material. So if I just go into the slate mode, you can see how cumbersome the material actually is if I just open this thing up. It's got a lot of layers to it. So of course we have the multi-material, and then each one of the standard materials for each object, and then we're doing a lot of dancing around to filter out all those different various channels in the texture. Okay, those modifiers are just filtering and multiplying and stuff like that. So it's pretty annoying. Now, like I said, it's designed for the old version of 3ds Max, but what you can do is you can assign a color wheel here of some sort, and then you can assign those to each one. You can dynamically change very easily just with a couple color palettes, which is kind of cool. So let's head back to the compact editor. So that's how this all kind of works. Well, okay, so I'm happy with this end result. Okay, how do I save this? I want to save it. I don't want this crazy colored thing. It's pretty easy. In the new version of 3ds Max, you just right-click, and you go to Render Map, and then you can just type in your dimensions, 1024, 1024, then hit Render, and then it'll render out. I find it takes a long time. Well, actually, it didn't take a long time, but depending on what render settings you have, it'll vary. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, we render the map out. We can just simply save it. Okay. Now, in case you're running the old 3ds Max, unfortunately, I don't think you have the save option, which is really dumb. What you have to do is use this button. Have save map. In this scenario, you would have to get the index, which is number 7. So you would type in number 7 here, and then your dimensions, of course, again. And you would just save the map out. So we can just save it as new map. All right, so we can just check that. Oopsies. Just load that again, sorry. Yeah, 7. Oh, where are you saved out? That's dumb. Okay, so yeah, that'll save the new map. Okay, so there's 2 ways you can do it. Depends on how you want to do it. Just one thing to keep in mind, both your normal map and your diffuse maps have to be saved out, because both of them have masking maps included in them. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your head. So yeah, that's pretty much it about materials. You can tweak them as you want, and do a bunch of stuff, and then just save out the final diffuse. Okay, to get to your end result. All right. Now, I think that's pretty much about materials. Yeah, I don't know if nothing really comes to mind. That's pretty much it. Another thing is if you bring up the MaxScript listener, you'll notice that when you import your mesh, you'll get a bunch of debug information. So let me just import another mesh, and what you get is a bunch of debug information. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean anything, probably to you, but depending on if you get an error or something, or if you were curious about, programming in this, programming on this format yourself, this may prove to be a little bit handy to you. This is all my debugging information that I print from the file. Stuff like the vertices, the faces, names, counts, unknowns, and stuff like that. So that's all kind of there. It's kind of neat to look at, and you can kind of see how it all kind of builds into the scene. So that's another thing, not very important, but it's there. Or we discuss the texture names. These just toggle on different things you can import. You just want to import the skeleton, you can do that. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Materials were probably the largest thing I wanted to discuss, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, I'll be releasing more videos discussing on a more technical scale about the actual file format, more in depth and stuff for anyone who's interested in that. But that's it. Of course, I don't have any forums. I don't know any forums. So again, any questions, you want to contact me, just hit me up on my email. Okay. Anyway, thanks guys, and have a good one.